Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. Folks, if you were looking forward to a deep dive into the dark depths of the evil that's ruling our world and their plot to enslave humanity with food shortages and collapse of the financial system, sorry, but today is not your show. Today is actually going to be a fun show. There's actually some good things that are going on. And while I was very tempted to talk about the food shortages and these food plants blowing up all over America, I thought, you know what? There's actually some pretty good things to talk about. I think we could all use a little bit of a lighter show today. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. And a few messages before we get started. First off, today's going to be a little bit shorter of a show. Yesterday was a 3-hour Q&A session, which was amazing. Thank you all for coming. So we won't have any Q&A at the end of today's show, just the regular show covering some of the headlines and what's happening in the world. Next, if you aren't following me yet on social media, head over to Telegram and Truth Social, where you'll find me as Man in America. I'm most active on Telegram, but trying to keep up on Truth Social as well, which I have a lot of confidence in as I get that rolled out further. Also, today's show is brought to you by Rise TV. Rise TV is what allows me to do this full time. It's the people like yourselves that are supporting Rise, allow us to fight this war, this information war with the content that we're creating. We do this full time. And as you can see, I've still committed to doing it on a lot of the free platforms like Facebook and YouTube and Rumble to get as much information out there as possible. But we do have a lot of amazing content over behind the paywall on Rise TV. If you want to check it out, there's a free trial. There's a link in the description below the video. You can go over there, check it out, poke around. There's some amazing content over there. We go deep into history of communism, human trafficking, but also lighter subjects like spirituality and interesting things about history like ancient civilizations, Atlantis, Tartaria. There's a lot of great stuff on there, so I highly recommend it. Next, you've heard me talk about it a lot. I'm going to keep drilling it into you. I highly recommend right now investing in gold and silver. And this is not just about pushing a certain product. Look, I'm very selective over what I bring to you. I only want to recommend something I fully believe in. And with the instability in the dollar, with everything happening with the global economy, I think that we're heading towards a collapse of our financial system as we know it. In my opinion, there is no safer place to be than gold and silver. So if you want to look into that, I highly recommend Noble Gold. So you can actually buy gold and silver directly from them and have it shipped to you, or you can do an IRA transfer, which is what they specialize in, which allows you to transfer money you have sitting in your IRA into physical gold and silver that you will own yourself with no taxes or penalties. There's a loophole they know how to follow there. So if you want to learn more about that, open a new tab right now and go to www.goldwithseth.com, or you can call 877-646-5347 to speak to a real person here in America. Again, it's 877-646-5347. All right, folks. So today's show, as I promised, is going to be a fun one. There's actually some incredible stuff happening, but it all fits into a particular narrative, which I want to highlight for you. We know that we are fighting an information war. What we've experienced, especially over the past couple of years, we're seeing it, is a propaganda and brainwashing like we've probably never imagined, that, especially that would happen in America. Maybe if you look back at Soviet Russia or communist China, it makes sense. They use the media to brainwash their people. And that's actually a lot of ways how they've come to power and maintain their power, because the totalitarian rulers know this. To control a society, you must be able to control the minds of that society. And so if you ask yourself, what is it that controls the minds of a society? Well, it's the mainstream media is a big one, which in China, everyone knows it's state-run media. Here in America, you think it's independent. Well, it's actually closer to being state-run media. So it's the mainstream media. A big one is Hollywood. The film, entertainment, culture that comes out of Hollywood greatly affects the way that we form our worldviews, especially with companies like Netflix, which we're going to touch on in today's show. The content they're putting out greatly shapes what's happening. It was the late Andrew Breitbart who said famously that politics is downstream from culture, right? Meaning that what we see happening politically, even the way people are voting, right, in America, it's really downstream from what's happening within culture. And one of the main drivers of culture is what people turn on to watch, right? So even with the younger folks, especially as they're turning on their TV, they're not tuning these things out. They're turning on Netflix and saying, oh, that's normal. They've got a new series about a cisgender man becoming pregnant. Like that's normal. Okay, yeah, well, the politicians should support that. That whole "don't say gay" bill in Florida, that's ridiculous. I'm gonna go out and protest against that. Like, this is what's happening. But what's amazing, though, as I'll show with the content presenting to you today, is that these companies are losing control. People are waking up more than I actually could have imagined. So we're talking about some breaking news about CNN Plus, where CNN Plus, they have canceled their streaming service. I'll be showing you an article about that very soon. But overall, people are breaking out of the narrative. They're leaving this brainwashing system behind, and they're thinking for themselves. And this is really, really encouraging for me because, well, look, I talk a lot about food shortages and just the reality of the Great Reset and what the globalists are trying to do and communist infiltration, which those things are very real things. Like I'm not going to try to tell you that they're not. And like I said, I almost covered today the fact that there's been, I think it's like 18, the past 6 months, 18 different fires and incidents that have burned down food manufacturing facilities or distribution centers. Even a couple of days ago, there's a place called Azure Standard, or they also known as Azure Market. They had their headquarters burned down, and they're one of the biggest distributors of bulk food. That's where I get my bulk food. That's where I get organic bulk wheat berries or sugar or honey. So there's definitely an attack on our food system. I'm not going to be covering that today because, as I promised, today's going to be a little more of a happier show, right? More smiles coming to you. So let's go ahead and first dive into what's happening to CNN, because as you know, CNN has played a very, very negative role. Where in the past, you might have looked at someplace like CNN and said, well, okay, maybe they're pushing a little bit more of a liberal ideology. They're pushing more liberal viewpoints and, maybe pushing people into more of a socialist way of thinking, which unfortunately, socialism and liberalism have been merged in a lot of ways. The traditional liberals of, say, JFK's time, that doesn't even exist anymore. It's been taken so far to the left intentionally. But CNN, along with a lot of the other mainstream media, they went from just pushing a particular narrative to actually outright lying, actually pushing propaganda. It's easy for us to look at, say, communist China, and you look at their state-run media, it's almost laughable. Like I was talking about the Shanghai lockdowns recently, and you look at the reality of what's happening in Shanghai, it's a complete disaster. Yet the state-run media are praising Xi Jinping as this heroic leader, and it's sickening. But that's actually not that different than what's happening here in America. So let me go and pull up this first article about what's happening with CNN Plus, because this just made my day, right? My intention today was actually to get into covering Disney and some things that are happening, but the news broke about CNN Plus, and I was like, this is just like the icing on the cake. So let me go and pull this up for you. I think you're going to like this. So here goes. This is from the Post Millennial, a great website, by the way. They have great content. And here we go. So CNN Plus streaming service terminated after just 21 days. Gosh. 3 weeks. Now listen to this. This is incredible. So CNN Plus, the broadcast network streaming service that was launched just 21 days ago, will be shut down, according to Variety digital editor Todd Spangler, who sent out this tweet about this. So CNN had initially planned to invest around $1 billion into the streaming service over the next 4 years. But as it was reported by Axios, the total was expected to be cut by hundreds of millions. It now appears as though the project will be stopped completely, however. So according to reports, this is insane, around $300 million was spent on the streaming service, which launched March 29th. The amount reportedly includes a sizable marketing investment. So just think about that. They put around $300 million into developing CNN Plus. And it lasted 21 days. That's $300 million just thrown down the garbage chute, burned, dumpster fire. That's what this is. So CNN executives had originally expected to bring in around 2 million subscribers in the U.S. for the service's first year, and a total of 15 to 18 million after a period of 4 years. According to sources that spoke with CNBC, though, fewer than 10,000 people were using CNN Plus on a daily basis 2 weeks after its launch and an extensive ad campaign. So less than 10,000 people were using it a day after its launch. After $300 million put into this, less than 10,000 people were using it. So what does this tell you? Does it tell you that CNN is it's a failed business? They don't have good executives? No. What is CNN's product? Their product is news and information. What this tells you is that no one wants their product. No one wants CNN's news and information because everyone sees through it now. People realize that it's just a giant lie. It's propaganda, but it's propaganda they want you to pay for. At least in communist China, it's free. You go to China, China Daily or whatever mainstream Chinese newspaper, they'll give you free propaganda. But in America, they're trying to make a business out of charging you $10 a month for propaganda, and people don't want to pay for it. So listen to this. So according to a report by Axios released on Wednesday, the service, quote, suspended all external marketing spend for CNN Plus and has laid off CNN's longtime chief financial officer as it weighs what to do with the subscription streaming service moving forward. An email reportedly sent from CNN reads, quote, today, Warner Brothers Discovery and CNN are announcing that we have decided to cease operations at CNN Plus effective April 30th. I want to share my perspective with you before the news breaks. So then they get into explaining, why. And of course, they're not going to tell you. It's like, well, why did it fail? Well, they're not going to come out and say that no one wants our crappy woke news and propaganda. They're going to come out and say, well, there's shifting in consumer habits and people, it's more competitive for streaming services. And there's all kinds of excuses. But the reality is that no one wants to buy the crap they're selling. So anyway, this is the kind of news that look, we've had some dark stuff going on lately. Trust me, I live in this world. I'm saying this all the time. But this is the kind of stuff that makes me go, you know what? There is hope for humanity because there's a lot of people that are seeing through the propaganda, which also means I know a lot of you, and we've talked about this a lot in our discussions together. A lot of you have asked me, Seth, how can we red pill our friends and family and everything and say, look, just give it time. Just give it time. Well, this is an indicator that people are waking up. This is a great indicator. So there are some good things happening. And so it's not just CNN though. So I got another article for you. As you have probably heard, so I'm sure you know that DeSantis has been this wrecking shop with Disney down in Florida, right? So after they released the bill, which Disney came out and said this is the "Don't Say Gay" bill because they're trying to stop teachers from talking about sexuality to third graders, which in my opinion that's what you call grooming. Right? This is getting young children ready for pedophilia. This is teaching them, hey, it's okay to talk to adults about sexual orientation and relationships and all this stuff that we know is destroying children. That's what it does. This is destroying the souls of children. Not to mention what happens if these poor little kids get on puberty blockers. They can't have kids anymore. No one's telling them that. No one's telling this little girl who's 12 years old that by undergoing these changes, you're not going to be able to raise children. And look, it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I really want to have children in my life. In my 20s, I didn't think much like that. It takes time. And certainly you can't, it's a kid that's 12 years old that's going to know that, hey, you know what? I don't want to take that puberty blocker pill or have that, gender reassignment surgery because what if I want kids when I'm actually 30? These kids aren't thinking that. So anyway, so DeSantis has taken a really hard line against this. And what just happened, and this was over the past couple of days, they pull up this article for you. They passed a new bill in the Florida House and Senate, which is now going to DeSantis's desk to be signed, which of course he will. So this is from CNBC here. So Florida Republicans vote to dissolve Disney's special district, eliminating privileges and setting up a legal battle. So this is interesting. I didn't know this before reading about what happened, that basically Disney had its own special district where Disney was able to govern its own stuff with almost no regulation for building and everything else because it had its own district, right? And we're used to seeing this. We're used to the governments giving these giant corporations these special privileges that, the small companies and medium companies never get access to. And look what happened during COVID. Look how many beautiful mom and pop stores were shut down while we still had Walmart, Amazon, Target, all the big box retailers just, going full on. So it's nice to see an instance of when the people that they choose to represent them, like DeSantis and the Florida Senate and Congress, are fighting back against this. So let me go ahead and read this to you. This is actually a pretty good article. I was first looking at the Epoch Times, but found this article a little more informative. So I hate to use them over the Epoch Times, but they did a decent job on this. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has has his guns pointed at Disney World. So on Thursday, so this is just today, this news broke. It was on Thursday, the Florida state legislature passed a bill seeking to dissolve a special district that allows the Walt Disney Company to act as its own government within the outer limits of Orange and Osceola counties. So the bill passed the state Senate Wednesday with a vote of 23-16 and sailed through the state's House of Representatives by a vote count of 70-38. So now the bill has passed both places. It's now going to be on to Ron DeSantis' desk for him to sign. So the proposal was first introduced on Tuesday by Republican State Senator Jennifer Bradley, but opponents claim it's really driven by DeSantis, who's locked in a bitter and public feud with the entertainment giant over the company's denouncement of Florida's HB 1557 law last month, which was dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill, which limits early education teachings on sexual orientation or gender identity. Gosh, that sounds terrible. What a terrible bill to be limiting that. So State Rep Randy Fine told CNBC's Squawk Box Thursday that the bill isn't retaliatory, but said, quote, "When Disney kicked the hornet's nest, we looked at special districts." This is what happened. This is what happens when you have a government that is by the people and for the people. They actually represent the interests of the people, which is also why so many people are moving to Florida, because they actually have a government that's listening to the people and standing up for what's good in this world, instead of just pushing these woke ideologies or shoving the elderly into nursing homes like we saw happen in places like Michigan and California and New York. So it's just fantastic. So let me read a little more here. So he said, quote, "People wanted to deal with the special district for decades." He said, "Disney has had the political power to prevent it for decades. What changed is bringing California values to Florida. Floridians said, 'You're a guest. Maybe you don't deserve special privileges anymore.'" And they made a good point here, because this is Florida and they're bringing these very woke liberal policies, California values, to Florida. And now the people are saying, "We don't want you here." So continuing on, the Disney Corporation is being attacked for expressing, so this is from a Democrat, right? They're saying, "The Disney Corporation is being attacked for expressing support for its many LGBTQ employees and customers," said State Senator Tina Polsky, a Democrat in Florida, during a special session. "Are we really making this enormous decision based on spite?" And it is an enormous decision. So what this means, so there's a little background. The district in question is the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which was established in 1967. It was established by the Florida state legislature so Disney could develop the infrastructure for Walt Disney World at no cost to Florida taxpayers. So there's a double-edged sword in this, because part of what it does is it removes the tax burden for all that development from the locals that live around it. And by dissolving that district, a lot of the taxes get passed on to the locals around it, but it also makes Disney much more liable. It opens up a lot more, and there's going to be a lot more oversight on what they can and cannot do, which also that gives the locals around there a lot more control over what Disney does. So the arrangement has allowed Disney to build theme parks, hotels, and other tourist experiences within the Reedy Creek district with little to no oversight. That's what this district does. There's also a lot of tax breaks and all kinds of things that change. But anyway, so this is a significant shift. It gets more into detail about what's happening there. But fundamentally, though, what we're seeing that the Florida government, which is representing the people, is actually fighting back against these corporations. Because if there's one thing that I've learned, especially recently, it's that in a lot of ways, we don't live in this free democratic America. We live in a country where the corporatocracy has, in many ways, merged with the government. We're even talking about the more kind of interesting things you could be diving into, like the military black budget, the military industrial complex. But what we have happening is we have these big corporations that are working hand in hand with government, getting all kinds of tax, kind of write-offs and all kinds of special privileges because of these big corporations. And again, I'm all for capitalism and free market, but I'm not for fascism. I'm not for the merger of big business with the state, which is what we're seeing. So it's great to see that the state is actually starting to take action against this, which is really, that's how America is supposed to work. It's that at the state level, we're running our states, by the people, and the people at the state level are making these decisions. It's not coming from federal, so we're stopping that. So next thing, though, is that this is also trickling down, and this is affecting Disney's stock, which is great because these are public companies, so their stock's getting wrecked by this. This is what brings them down. So I'll use Mr. Brian from CNN to give them a little bit of love after their giant $300 million loss. Actually, it was a pretty decent article that explained what was happening there. So anyway, so what's happening with their stocks? So I love the headline here. The magic is gone for Disney investors. That's right. It is. That's what happens when you become a groomer. So New York CNN Business says that Disney investors aren't having as awful of a year as Netflix shareholders, but that's not saying much. We're going to talk about Netflix next. So Netflix's stock has plunged more than 40% this year ahead of its first quarter earnings release after the closing bell Tuesday. Meanwhile, shares of Disney, DIS, have dropped nearly 15% so far in 2022. That makes Disney one of the worst performers in the Dow, which is down just 4% this year. Both companies have been plagued by concerns about streaming competition and the fierce battle for subscribers. So again, this is CNN, so they're not saying that both companies have been plagued by a woke agenda and propaganda that no one wants anymore, right? As I told you, they're just going to be saying that, look, there's competition, there's more streaming services, and of course that is playing into it, but that's not what's causing this really. So, but let's take a look at what's happening with Netflix, because you think Disney's bad? Look at this. Okay, this is Netflix stock, right, as a public company. Now, this is this sharp decline. So let me show you what's happened in the last month. Okay, last 5 days. You see that right there? That is heavy. They've lost almost 40% in the last 5 days. In the last 6 months, this is insane. 6 months ago, Netflix was at almost $700 per share. It's down to $215. So Netflix has lost 66.76% of its market value in the last 6 months. Now, I found a really good article. Actually, I had to credit Kate for this, because Kate found this fantastic article explaining what it is that's happening there. So let me pull this up for you. So what's happening to Netflix? Is it that there's competition from all the other streaming services, or is it that they are going so woke that they're now going broke? So check this out. This is on the Washington Free Beacon, another fantastic website. You're saying that another Obama failure. Netflix implodes days after release of Obama nature documentary. Now, you can't say necessarily that it was the documentary that came out that caused this massive drop, but this is showing you the symptom, right? This is showing you another thing that's happening at Netflix that is leading to all this. Let's go ahead and read this article. This is an excellent article. So just days after a nature documentary hosted by former President Barack Obama launched on Netflix, a streaming company is in shambles with its share in free fall. So why is Obama doing nature documentaries? That's beyond me anyway. So on April 13th, Netflix released all 5 episodes of his documentary series, Our Great National Parks, produced and narrated by Obama. What a great show. While culture critics and the liberal media received this series warmly, as you'd expect, even as one admitted, quote, "I can't say I learned a tremendous amount." Investors were less convinced. So in a stunning show of pessimism in the company's situation, Netflix's stock imploded on Tuesday, plunging 37% by Wednesday morning. We're talking billions and billions of dollars gone. The collapse was driven by Netflix's Tuesday announcement it lost subscribers last quarter for the first time in more than a decade. The service is scrambling to remedy its poor subscriber numbers, announcing last month that it plans to start charging customers for sharing their accounts with others. The company's decline is a reflection of the failure of its costly partnership with the former president. So Netflix in 2018 entered into a multi-year agreement with Obama and his wife, Michelle, to produce films and series. Now, they don't know exactly how much it cost, but they're estimating here it could have been upwards of tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, this partnership with Barack and Michelle. Through the deal, the Obamas brought to Netflix a documentary called American Factories. This is crazy. This shows you what happens. About an Ohio auto factory bought out by a Chinese state-backed company. While the film purported to shed light on a clash of cultures and the struggles of the American working class, and instead served as a platform for, quote, a platform for communist oligarchs to propagandize. So imagine that. The Obamas are putting together a film that they're actually talking about an Ohio auto factory that was bought by a Chinese state-backed company, so a CCP company, and how then put this documentary on it, which they're now saying is serving as CCP propaganda. In my opinion, if Netflix is allowing this and Netflix is putting out propaganda, of all places, especially that's propaganda representing the CCP, this company deserves to burn. That's my opinion. If they're pushing CCP propaganda, the same place where you have 28 million people locked down in Shanghai, the same place where they're harvesting the organs of live Falun Gong practitioners, the same place where you've got millions of Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, any company that is aligning with the CCP deserves to be burned to the ground. And so this is what we see happening. Right? There is, God is watching over. I know it's difficult sometimes to see that, but you're seeing these little glimpses of it saying, God's saying, you know what? You're punished. You're getting punished for that. So if communist propaganda wasn't unpalatable enough for viewers, the Obamas are reportedly working to bring to Netflix a kids show called, I'm not joking, listen to this is the name of the kids show. This is from Michelle Obama. It's called, quote, "Listen to your vegetables and eat your parents." So Michelle Obama is bringing to Netflix a kids show with "Eat Your Parents" in the title. That's like number one on my hit list is companies that are promoting the CCP. Number two, or close to that, is companies that are pushing cannibalism. Okay, well, here you go. So Michelle Obama's show, "Eat Your Parents." So now, some critics of Netflix argued that the company's programming across the board, not just the content of the Obamas, brought this site, is to blame for the company's hemorrhaging of subscribers. So, just the day, this is interesting because who's big in the news right now is Elon Musk. Now, the day before we saw this massive drop in Netflix shares and their market cap, Elon Musk tweeted and he said that, quote, that the woke mind virus has made Netflix unwatchable. So Elon Musk, who has tens of millions of followers on Twitter, I wonder how many people unsubscribe from Netflix after he puts out this tweet saying that the woke mind virus has made Netflix unwatchable. I love how he's calling it that too. He's calling it the woke mind virus. Good for him. Elon, you're really you're getting some positive check marks in my book. Next, I want to see you come out against the Chinese Communist Party. If you can do that, I will gladly take you out to dinner if you'll let me. So the critique is born out of Netflix's release this week of, this is insane. So timing also this week. So Netflix released this week, he's expecting a Japanese film about a, quote, successful cisgender man forced to confront social inequalities he'd never considered before when he becomes pregnant. You can't make this stuff up. So this is what Netflix just put out. Okay, so you have the Obama stuff dropping this week. You have Elon Musk saying they have a woke mind virus that's infected their content. And they just put out this movie called He's Expecting. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to warn you here. This is not nice to look at. This is the movie. He's Expecting. Okay, about a Japanese man. Let me zoom in for you. It's about a Japanese man who's fallen pregnant. And he's dealing with the societal problems of being a pregnant cisgender man. This is the crap that Netflix is pushing out. So you thought that CNN was bad. Well, yeah, CNN's been pushing their state propaganda and pushing people into oblivion as they fall into this woke ideology. So you've got that happening at one time. Now, remember what I told you before, right? That politics is downstream from culture. Well, this is the culture that Netflix is pushing out for our children to watch. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's not even disgusting. It's demonic. It's satanic. It's an evil agenda to destroy humanity. But the beautiful thing is that people are saying, they're realizing it. They're saying, you know what? You're trying to destroy us. This is evil. And as these companies get more and more woke, more and more people wake up because it gets more extreme. So maybe even 10 years ago, you cut onto this, you say, you know what, Netflix has gotten too bad for me. I canceled my Netflix. That was actually like the week that the whole cuties things happened. That was it for me. Netflix was done. So I'm not going to support a platform that's pushing the sexualization of children. So, okay, they moved on from that now to pushing pregnant men. So they're getting what they deserve, which is great. And the thing is that across the country, though, the narrative is changing and people's political views are changing because people are realizing, let me take that disgusting picture off. Sorry about that. People are realizing what's behind these woke ideologies and they're seeing through it. And more people are standing up. Now, as I talked about before, it's like, okay, are there still going to be food shortages and all that stuff? I believe those things are still coming down the pipeline. But the good thing is that people are correcting themselves morally, because I believe that we are at a time of Noah's Ark. This is a time when there's a lot of evil on earth, but it's the good people. It's the people that really correct the morals in their hearts that I believe will make it through whatever is coming ahead of us. Right? It's not just the people that go out and plant food and stock up. Yes, okay, maybe they're going to have it a little bit easier, but I believe that with the stage that we're entering into, it's really our morality that's going to determine the fate of our futures. And so what I'm seeing here with all this information, people leaving these platforms, leaving these media companies, leaving these stream platforms, are doing it because these platforms have become too immoral. They're pushing lies and immoral concepts. So this is what's encouraging, because if you see a drop in Netflix subscribers and you see their stock drop 40%, what it shows me is that people are seeking goodness, that people are they're wanting to turn away from these evil agendas in our society, which is encouraging to me. Now, what's also interesting is that the shift of what's happened with President Trump. So there's another graph that this just came out today as I was preparing for the show. Let me pull this up for you. So this is from Real Clear Politics. This is the Trump favorability ratings. Now, this is really, really important. I'm going to zoom in for you here. And for those of you that are listening on the podcast, I'll explain what's happening. So what this is showing is you have two lines on this line chart. The red is showing unfavorable. The black is showing favorable. Now, what we're seeing is that as these lines reverse, this is the overall perspective across the nation of President Trump. So Trump is entering into a period where he is actually, his favorability ratings right now, his favorability ratings are even higher than when he first got into office. Essentially, the guy hasn't been technically in office for, almost 2 years now, 1.5 years, yet his favorability ratings are skyrocketing. So this is encouraging because, this represents that people are returning to more conservative values. Is it that people all of a sudden just love President Trump? No, I'm not going to say that. I think what is they love the ideas that he represents. And what Trump has always represented is returning to the true American values, whether it was through his 1776 commission or in all of his speeches where he's talking about how America will never become a socialist country. People are seeing through that. So to finish today's show, I've got an amazing video to show you the real life example of this playing out. So perhaps you've heard of a guy named Alex Stein who does these hilarious raps. He goes to like a city council or a school board, and he's either rapping or he's pretending to mock a lot of the woke liberal ideologies. So he recently released a video where he went with another woman, I forget her name, into a gay district. I forget which area that they're in, but he went to a very gay district of a city. Now, again, gay, straight, whatever, okay? This America's the melting pot, but I'm not going to be making judgment on that. But you would probably agree with me when I say that typically the gays have identified much stronger with the liberal values. They are much more pro-Biden, right? You didn't see these giant LGBTQ plus AI, whatever, having giant rallies for President Trump or celebrating President Trump. It was actually the opposite. So just take a look at these. He's going around with this woman interviewing these people in this city area that you would have thought would have been really liberal, but watch their responses. I'm telling you, things are really changing in America. And maybe we have Joe Biden to thank. Maybe Joe Biden is actually the great uniter of America. He's been the first person to unite both sides of the aisle all together. This is better than Bush during the war and around, it's either us or the terrorists. No, Joe Biden is uniting people together. And just watch this video as Alex shows us this. And you're gonna have a good laugh with this, I promise. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Primetime 99 and Savannah Hernandez asking the gay community, what do they think about Joe Biden?
Let's go, baby.
I feel like Joe Biden is like, I don't even think he's there mentally at all.
Really?
No, I don't. I think like he's literally being told what to say. Like I think he's literally being like, he's like a puppet and they're just kind of, they're telling him, go, here's the speech, go say it now.
How are we feeling about Joe Biden as president?
He can fuck off and die, as far as I'm concerned. I fucking hate him.
Not feeling it.
No?
No.
He's an absolute fucking idiot.
Donald Trump for president.
I'm not a fan of Sleepy Joe. I don't like how he's been inflation. Like, I'm not into it.
The whole country suffering from it, but I mean,
You like Trump or Biden?
Trump. I liked it when we had a good economy and I felt safe. The borders were being under control.
he is not always great at speaking and articulating himself.
I think Biden is scared. I think he's scared of Putin.
Think so?
Yeah, I think Putin, been in office at the time Biden's our president. Biden, he probably applied to be president at the wrong time now. You know what I'm saying? Everybody see like he's scared and like now we scared, you know what I'm saying? So
Because our president's scared.
Hey, y'all name anything Joe Biden has done good as president?
Shit, I don't know.
Do you like Joe Biden? How are we feeling about Joe Biden as president?
I like him.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Think he's doing a good job?
He is.
What about those gas prices?
Ridiculous. Yeah, ridiculous.
What about the war in Ukraine and Russia? How are we feeling about it? Like, do you feel like this would have happened under Donald Trump type of thing?
No,
How come?
I'm Republican, that's why.
So Trump or Biden?
Trump.
Okay, if you could choose between Trump or Biden, who we choosing?
Bring back Trump.
Yeah?
Bring back Trump.
Isn't that great? And this is it, folks. Look, I know that there's some crazy stuff happening in the world, and I know as we enter into the midterms, there's a lot of concern. It's like, did they really fix things from 2020? Is it really going to count however we cast our votes? And I think that, look, what happened in 2020, that could not have happened if they didn't control the media. This is key, folks. Okay, and I'm speaking a little bit code here because I'm still on YouTube and Facebook, and they're watching me. The CIA and all this, they're watching me, right? So, but what happened, you have to realize that what happened in 2020, November 3rd, they could not have gotten away with that if they didn't control the media, because that allowed them to control the narrative, it allowed them to control the mind. So as we enter into the midterms, remember that even though they still have the machines that are counting and there's all kinds of stuff that they can pull with that, fundamentally, if enough Americans have shifted their thinking like this, which is what's happening, if enough of us do, they're not going to be able to control it. And if they try to pull something, maybe this is what finally exposes what happened in 2020, is when they try to pull something in the midterms and the American people are like, you know what? No. Like, I'm watching the other news channels. I'm watching that Man in America guy. He told me what's really happening. Or I'm watching, not Fox News. Sorry about Fox News. Those snakes, of course, they're complicit in it all. But more and more people are waking up and they're seeing the truth. So there is hope. But now I will remind you, if you haven't yet, please plant your gardens and get out there and be stocking up on food, because we want to be able to sustain and get through whatever they throw at us. But the most important thing is that people are waking up. The American people around the world, they're waking up. And so for all of you that are watching that have been, you've been banished by your family, you've been kicked out of your groups on Facebook, you have been not invited to Thanksgiving, you can't hug your grandma. I know it's been difficult, but everything that you're doing, all those little seeds that you're planting to wake up your friends and family, they're finally sprouting. They're sprouting. And so the people are waking up, and it's a really, really important time for us. So try your best to keep your head up, keep pushing forward, keep pressing into the fight, because we have to keep at this. You're playing a very, very important role, because as I talked about earlier, I think that what's coming ahead of us, while the people that are prepared and have gardens and food supplies, it's going to be helpful. It might lessen the burden. I think fundamentally it's our morality that will determine our fate in the future. And if you can help people remove themselves from the Satan's hooks of Netflix and these corrupt media companies, they're trying to take us morally into hell. Like, literally, they're trying to drag us into hell. If you can help your friends and family to remove those hooks from their minds, that might be the thing that allows them to have a bright future. So I encourage you to keep at it, keep your head up. Thank you all for watching me today. If you didn't get to watch yesterday's 3-hour Q&A, you can put it on the background and listen to it. We covered a lot of great stuff there. Just want to remind you that tomorrow at 7:30 p.m., I'll be on Rise TV for 2 hours for Friday Night Live, which is going to be a lot of fun. It always is. If you want to check it out, if you want to even come in for the live and hang out for that show, again, there's a free trial below. It costs you nothing. Stop in, see what it's like. I know you're going to love it. Also tonight at 7:30 p.m., Ben and Rob, the guys over at Edge of Wonder, and this will be on Rumble as well as Rise TV, but they're doing a live show. They're digging into all of these recent fires at these food distribution facilities. So they're going to be doing a live show specifically about that. So if you're really looking forward to your dystopian update from Man in America, you'll get your fix tonight with Edge of Wonder at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you watch that on Rumble. Also, Kate's passing on a quick message real quick. Oh, okay. So there were because Kate's been monitoring the comments and helping run the stream, there were a handful of audio issues on Facebook and YouTube. So not on Rumble, not on Rise TV. So I encourage you, even if you don't join Rise TV, that's fine. Please, please, please start watching us on Rumble. Rumble, we know them very well. They're great patriots. They're working with us closely to make sure that we're delivering very good quality streams. They're bending over backwards to make sure that we can get this content to you in beautiful quality without any kind of technical issues. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I encourage you to please at least come over to watch it on Rumble, because the audio issues that you were seeing on YouTube and Facebook, we didn't have those on Rumble. So again, actually, it's odd because sometimes if there's issues, we'll see those issues happen on every stream. But the fact that there's 0 issues on Rumble and there are issues only on Facebook and YouTube, I believe there's a decent chance that the powers over at those companies, again, they're part of the Netflix, they're part of that woke, corporatocracy. There's a good chance they're throttling what we're doing. They're trying to interrupt our stream to make it not as good for you. So please, support us over on Rumble. And if you want to join Rise TV, of course, it's fantastic. But otherwise, head over to Rumble, create an account, subscribe to it. It's a great platform. I know you're going to love it. So, all right, folks, thank you so very, very much. I love this show today. And look, I'm going to try to do more shows like this. I'm going to still cover the realities and the Great Reset and the food shortages. And it's important because I think that it's good information to have, to give to you, to help you prepare for whatever's coming. But we have to have some opportunities to smile and have a little bit of fun, have a little bit of hope for the future. So I'm going to try to work in more of these shows. I'm also going to be working to bring in some more of some videos and content about what Kate and I are doing around the property as we prepare and bring that in, as we're kind of returning to tradition together, which will be a beautiful thing. I can't wait to share with you. So thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful day. I hope to see you tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. on Rise TV. Thank you all. Take care and have a wonderful, beautiful day.